Well, people, tonight is the night. This is probably going to be my last video, maybe one more video before Errol Spence Jr., Terence Bud Crawford face off for undisputed welterweight title of the world. First ever in the history of boxing. It goes down. And did a couple of videos yesterday. They blew up. Comments went crazy. And I got asked this question multiple times. Shout out to Bud Crawford fans. Shout out to Bud Crawford. I was asked, what are you going to do if Terence Bud Crawford wins? I am going to recognize Terence Bud Crawford as the pound for pound king in the sport of boxing today. As I've mentioned before in other videos, I feel like we've been devoid of a pound for pound, true pound for pound #1 fighter. A couple guys get mentioned, but a solidified, bona fide pound for pound fighter would be Bud Crawford with a victory over Errol Spence Jr. And one of the things that's interesting to me that happens is, especially when you have the resume conversation, Bud Crawford fans and some analysts will break it down and say, Bud was undisputed at 140, and who has Errol really fought? And then they'll denigrate this guy and that guy. Well, Ugas was weak, and Danny Garcia's not, he didn't do anything at welterweight. And, you know, we'll start to put those things out there. But what I would say to anyone who kind of has that position, I do not have that position. What I would say to anyone who has that position is this: how can we recognize Bud Crawford as great if he defeats Errol Spence Jr. when we just shit all over Errol, whatever Errol's done up until this point? The reason why we want to see these types of fights is because we know both the combatants have accomplished a tremendous amount in the sport of boxing. Yeah, one resume might be better than the other, but these are both tremendous fighters. It's too difficult to say that Errol ain't shit and Bud's gonna kick his ass, and then say if Bud kicks his ass, then he's the greatest fighter and he's pound for pound. Well, why? According to you, Errol Spence hasn't done anything in the sport of boxing. He's drunk, whatever the case may be. And if Bud beats him, he should beat him. And then we continue to wonder who the best fighter in the world is because Errol hasn't done anything. See, that doesn't really make sense. Any videos that I've done, any breakdowns that I've done, any predictions that I've offered it from the perspective of knowing or trying to know and understand both of these fighters. Terence Bud Crawford, he's a 3-division world champion, 35, 40, 47, undisputed at 140 pounds, with a unique style, with the ability to switch stances when necessary, be athletic, and more than athletic, because I think Errol's athletic, Bud Crawford has the ability to be creative, do things that are a little unusual from angles and places that some people can't do them. But that's what makes Terence Bud Crawford sensational, and that he's 39-0, I think with 29 knockouts, something like that, and he cemented himself in the sport of boxing already. Errol Spence Jr., lifetime welterweight, a tremendous run. I remember the cards when he was on 8-rounders destroying people. I said, who is this guy? He had the shag still, and he was doing his thing. Calling out champions. Keith Thurman ran and ducked until it was convenient for him. Finally puts himself in a position to fight Kell Brook, goes to Sheffield, beats Kell Brook in his backyard, takes the IBF title that Kell Brook took from Sean Porter. After that, he goes on to fight named Sean Porter, who had the WBC title, who he fought for that was vacant at the time. He fought Danny Garcia, and a fight I actually think Danny won, but Sean Porter got the nod, WBC belt. Fights Errol Spence Jr., close, compelling fight. Sean Porter came in ridiculous shape, wasn't able to get it done, gets you dropped in the 11th, ends up sealing his fate. Errol Spence takes another belt from another champion. Last and most certainly not least, shout out to your Dennis Ugas, coming off of the Manny Pacquiao destruction where he lumped him up and had him looking crazy and he couldn't see, and his wife's feeding him oatmeal and porridge and all that other stuff. Errol Spence Jr. fights him April 16th of last year, closes his eye up, has him looking crazy, crying tears of blood, and he becomes a 3-belt unified champion at 147 pounds. See, when you run through those accolades, it's hard to talk shit. These are great fighters fighting in their prime. What am I going to do if Terence Bud Crawford wins was the original question. Recognize him as the pound for pound best fighter in the world today. I have an appreciation for guys like Alexander Usyk and NOA, but this fight at this moment in time is too big too significant and too meaningful for the sport of boxing for the winner of the fight not to be recognized as pound for pound number one. On the side of Errol Spence Jr., I don't spend a lot of time denigrating a Bud Crawford. I can be critical of his resume, or I could talk about how he likes to take unnecessary risks in fights because he's a beast like that. He wants to get it back. But I'm not going to sit and tell you that he ain't shit. He hasn't accomplished a lot in the sport of boxing, and that his accolades mean nothing. That's foolishness, because it's hard for me to praise Errol Spence, like I mentioned, and then dog Terence Crawford. Because if Terence Crawford ain't shit, if Errol beats him, then who cares? It's meaningless. You beat a tomato can. Bud Crawford's a tomato can. That's what you're saying. And I don't agree with that. This fight is great for a reason. It's going to do numbers for a reason. It's going to be a legacy cementing fight, really, for both of these fighters, no matter the outcome, and here's why. They got in the ring in their primes with O's and belts, and they fought. Period. Yeah, the winner is going to be a little more mint. He's going to be remembered for, accomplishing something tremendous in the sport of boxing. First ever 147-pound undisputed champion. But history's already been made, people. Legacies have already been cemented. I can't wait for this fight. What am I going to do if Bud Crawford wins? Recognize him for what he is, the pound-for-pound king in the sport of boxing, legitimately. I know he's already rated there, and he's been put in positions where he's been recognized as a great fighter, and he is. I mean, no one's that. If you gonna say he's not, cap. I just think that you guys know my prediction already. I think Errol's gonna be too much. I think Bud made some mistakes in the build-up, the lead-up to the fight, that could cost him at this high level. He could get away with maybe experimenting with certain things like weight and nutrition and strength training against an Avanesian or against a mean machine. But I think when you start fighting the best guys in the world in the division, it's time to refine and not dramatically change. And I think there were borderline dramatic change that Terence Crawford underwent, and we'll see. He goes out here, he gets it done, he shuts me up from that perspective, but I'm a fan of both of these men. You got to pick, and that's the great thing about the sport of boxing, especially for a channel like mine. I don't do a lot of videos like this one. I like to just kind of break fights down, tell people what I see, and then give a prediction or how something may or may not play out. That's primarily what I do, and I do that well. But one of the things I love about when you make a final prediction and you interact with you all that listen to the channel, the fans, we get to have a conversation about the possibilities. This fight is unique from the perspective of this. It's the first time in a long time where you see the fan bases are so adversarial, it's borderline uncomfortable. None of us are going to fight this evening, well, at least not for money. Or that could happen too. But you get my point. Bud Crawford, Errol Spence Jr. will fight this evening, and let the best man win. Point blank, period. Let the best man win. For us as fans, name calling and shit talking, I'm not even going to say don't do it. Some of that stuff's fun and entertaining. I totally get that. But perspective is important. Appreciate that we're getting this fight right on time, if not just outside of right on time. And at the height of its meaning, the height of its possible meaning. This is your boy JG. This is the Punch Report. Let me know what your thoughts are. Bud Crawford, Errol Spence Jr. goes down tonight. Maybe another video coming. Drop something in the comment section if you have a question or request. I'll see if I can get it up here. This is your boy JG. We out.